Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport racing, with all the speed, excitement, and drama that comes along with it. A spectacle where 20 drivers race in circles at over 300 kilometers an hour in 20 different countries on over 5 different continents. What's not to love? And seeing as this is 2023 and everybody is searching for a way to make money off of absolutely anything, sports betting on Formula One exists, and in this video I'm going to go over the strategies that I use when I bet on Formula One. Now, keep in mind that no matter how fun or easy or entertaining it may seem, sports betting on Formula One is still gambling. You are still putting the fate of your money in the outcome of a sporting event. And on top of that, gambling can be extremely addictive. It's very easy to get sucked in and bet more than you probably should, or even worse, you can chase wins after multiple losses, which can then just compound your losses and you keep losing and losing and losing, hoping to eventually get out of that hole. The idea is that it's super risky and I don't recommend betting more than you're willing to lose 100%. This is not financial advice and I'm in no way guaranteeing that you are going to win if you do follow this strategy, so please just be cautious. Now, with all that being said, let's get into my strategy and how I bet on Formula One. Now, since I'm currently located in Romania, I use a sports betting website called Superbet to place all of my bets. They don't have an extremely large array of bets to choose from for Formula One, and they actually don't always appear, but when they do, I do have a couple favorites that I like to take every weekend. However, if you're anywhere else in the world, I would definitely consider looking at what your local region offers as a sports betting website, or checking out Bet365, which has a large variety of bets on Formula One as well, and they're very international. There are a couple different sessions that we can bet on during an F1 weekend, and this is determined by the type of F1 weekend it is. This basically only changes if it's a regular weekend or if it's a sprint weekend. But regardless of what type of weekend it is, the first session that you're able to bet on is the qualifying session. The qualifying session is usually held on Saturday, except for those special sprint race weekends when the qualifying session is then held instead on Friday. For me, Superbet usually offers 2 options for each driver on the qualifying day. They can either finish on pole position, so that's first place, or within the top 3. This may be different on your site. Again, I don't know. Every site offers different types of bets, but just check what they have. I know this is what's offered to me on Superbet. However, no matter what your site really offers, that doesn't change the fact that I don't really recommend betting on a qualifying session. I just find that the risk to reward ratio isn't really that great. Especially this year when Max has been pretty dominant throughout the qualifying session, the payout for betting him to get pole position really isn't worth the risk of it. For example, now where for the past 3 weeks he's actually been challenged for that pole position, and to make a mere maybe $12 if you bet $100 on him getting pole, that's not really a bet that I'm looking to take. Or something like last week could happen, where at the Hungarian Grand Prix Lewis Hamilton actually stole pole away from Max, so you would have lost your safe bet in theory, just for the unpredictability of the qualifying session. Even before that, the British Grand Prix, Norris almost stole pole position from Verstappen as well. The uncertainty with everybody rolling out upgrades at the moment and the FIA clearly trying to stabilize the field throughout qualifying with the new regulations where in Q1 you have to use the hard tires, in Q2 you have to use medium tires, and in Q3 you have to use the hard tires, makes me even more certain that I want to stay away from these qualifying bets for the moment. However, I do sometimes take Charles Leclerc top 3 finish in qualifying at some of the tracks that I know Ferrari performs well at, because I think he's just a master at extracting every millisecond out of a car on a 1-lap qualifying pace. Now, full disclosure, I am a Ferrari fan and a Leclerc fan, so although I may seem a little biased at times, I will try to be as objective as possible. But in all honesty, it's pretty hard to be a Ferrari fan at the moment. I feel like my heart skips a beat every time I hear Leclerc come on the radio, or I get angry every time I hear Xavi respond with, "We are checking."
Okay, copy that, we are checking it. Yeah, everybody, we are checking now.
But as a true Ferrari fan, you know what they say. Next year will be our year. Now, back to qualifying. Although I don't see myself placing any bet on Leclerc finishing in the top 3 in the near future, given Ferrari's recent form, I am going to start looking at Norris as a potential top 3 qualifying finisher, but I do want to see a couple more races first. If he continues the current form that he's on, this would definitely be a great bet to consider placing in qualifying if the payout is good enough. But either way, for the time being, I am going to recommend staying away from any qualifying bets, at least from a strategic standpoint. However, The outcome of the qualifying sessions are incredibly important for the actual bets we're going to be placing on race day. Sunday. It all comes down to Sunday. 20 drivers line up on the grid, all fighting for the same goal of finishing at the top. And we're going to take advantage of that. The first thing we want to do is have a list of the previous races and the previous finishing positions for each drivers. I keep a sheet on my computer just to see what the previous positions have been so that I'm able to quickly access it and see it no matter where I may be. And I also like to write down why they may have performed badly. So if it was maybe a short pit stop, if it was a race strategy bad call, if there was a safety flag or anything like that. This helps me then predict with a high probability what their average finishing spot may be in the next race. This is again just a very large, vast first look overview of what I think they could do based on their previous performance. So step 1 is a large overview of the current form and of the car and team's current form in the past couple races. Afterwards, I go over the qualifying positions to see where they're actually going to be starting Sunday's race. There are 5 types of bets that I usually like to look at, and these are 1. Finishing on pole position, so finishing first. 2. Finishing within the top 3. The third bet, finishing within the top 6. The fourth bet, finishing within the top 10. And the fifth bet is a direct head-to-head between 2 different drivers. Keeping this in mind, I then glance over the top 10 qualifiers and see where Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes are located. I expect the Red Bulls to at least be in the top 6 every race, and both Mercedes and Ferrari's cars to be in the top 10. So if I see any of these cars out of these positions, I quickly add them to my parlay. But again, we have to note that if any of these cars are starting at the back of the grid, so let's say position 17 to 20, I'm more hesitant to add them as a top 10 finisher, but this again is due and dependent on the weather, the track that they're at, and different circumstances. The only true exception to this would probably be Max Verstappen, who could start P20 and probably end up winning the race by 20 seconds. But I digress. If these 6 cars are already in the top 10, I like to leave a little bit of room for error. Or in Ferrari's case, a lot of room for error. And this is depending on their starting position. I actually tend to disregard Verstappen completely, as the payout for having him in a top 3 finishing spot is very, very small, and placing him as a sole winner of a Grand Prix, although it is pretty certain at the moment, it just feels a bit too risky to me because you never know what could happen, or a potential failure, or just some bad calls or weather or any unpredictable factor. So the payout for that is also too small that I just kind of stay away from any Max Verstappen bets. If Perez is anywhere in the top 4, I place him as a top 6 finisher, giving him a little leeway. But with the rocket ship of a car that they have, and Red Bull usually being spot on both their strategies and their pit stops, this is usually a safe bet. For Ferrari, I look to see if they're within the top 7, and then I end up placing both of them in the top 10 as final finishing positions. Although Sainz tends to have a better race strategy on race day, I don't feel confident placing them any higher than within the top 10 because I don't have faith in their strategy, in their pit stops, and frankly it just feels like the whole universe is kind of conspiring against them at the moment, so we don't want anything too risky. So the most that I think we can get away with as a safe bet is Ferrari top 10. If either one of the 2 Ferrari drivers qualifies within the top 3, then maybe I'll push it and say that they'll end up finishing in the top 6, again giving leeway because they always find a way to drop back a couple places. And again, this would be a bet that I'm very stressed to take. At Mercedes, consistency is key. They always find a way to sneak up into those high spots, regardless of where they're starting. But again, for the sake of keeping this a safe bet, any qualifying position within the top 8, I will place them in the top 10. And any top 4 qualifying position, I will go ahead and place either of their drivers in a top 6 final position. Now, at this point, you already have 5 solid bets on your parlay, and this should bring you pretty close, if not over, doubling your money. For me personally, that's more than enough for a Sunday afternoon. However, if you aren't satisfied with that, you could go ahead and add another driver to finish within the top 10. You could look at either of the McLaren drivers or maybe Fernando Alonso from Aston Martin as well. Those would be my best alternative choices towards increasing the overall payout of this bet. If you do prefer head-to-head bets, you also have that option as well. You will again have to look at the qualifying results and place your bets accordingly based on their qualifying position. The payout on this may be a little smaller, but you can also come close to doubling your money if you pick 4 to 5 bets on your parlay. The only downside to this, however, is that to get 4 to 5 bets, you need to go in towards the lower half of the grid, which is always where some very unpredictable stuff happens. There may be crashes. I tend to stay away from this if I can. Just be careful with that. On sprint race weekends, there's an extra qualifying session and an extra mini race, both held on Saturday. I again tend to stay away from these bets as I feel that drivers don't push 100% as they're scared to cause any serious damage to their cars ahead of the feature race on Sunday. But if you do want to bet on the sprint races, I would recommend following the same formula that we have for the feature race. Give a little leeway to every driver and accept a smaller return so that we can make it as safe a bet as possible. I don't think you'll ever meet anyone that has a 100% win rate when betting. Like in any other sport, there are just way too many factors out of our control when betting on F1. There could be an engine failure, there could be a horrible pit stop, there could be weather, there could be a safety car, there could be a crash, there could be damage from other cars. The list goes on and on. The possibilities are unfortunately endless. But that's the beauty of the sport after all, isn't it? It's wonderful that we have the opportunity to make money while watching a sport that we love. But I don't want you to get obsessed with this idea of having to be profitable every weekend. You probably started watching F1 because you love F1. And now that you want to bet on it, you may start to lose that love of F1 if you aren't making money every weekend. Be smart with the bets you make. Understand the risks that come with it and adapt. Every week, try to see what mistakes were made the previous week if you didn't win and fix them for the next week, or try again and then in 2 weeks fix them. Always be looking to see where you can improve even when betting. For example, I think 3 weeks in a row I lost my bet because Ferrari didn't hit the needed position by 1 spot. 3 weeks in a row. And that sucked. But I adapted. I took them off of my parlay and watched their form for the next couple weeks. So basically, I adjusted my game plan and saw what I could do better to hopefully help me become more profitable. You won't win 100% of the time, but if you keep improving, you will definitely be profitable in the long term as long as you don't take any crazy bets that have a very small chance of happening. Because there's a difference between betting smart and gambling. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. For full transparency, I will be posting my weekly parlays so that you can see them and even copy them if you want to. I haven't decided yet whether I'll post them on my community tab or whether I'll upload a short after the qualifying sessions on Saturday, but either way, make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on so that you can be notified when it does drop. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know if you did enjoy this type of content and want to see more of it in the future. See you guys next time. Bye.